morning, everybody. My name is Renee.
I'm Miguel.
And I'm UVA, and we're your hosts. We're back. Welcome to Signals in the Noise, daily insights into trends across the narrative landscape.
But what do we mean by narrative landscape? Well, conversations unfold around us, reinforcing ideas, beliefs, and values that we interact with every day. We know that narrative is not static, and that stories and messages can both trickle up and trickle down from local to national, from politicians to celebrities, and from influencers to micro-influencers who spread information in both centralized and decentralized ways.
Our team combs through news articles, social media content, and websites to then dissect those pieces of content to identify conversations, messages, and stories. This allows us to identify the shape and color of how meaning is made in the landscape in which we're all organizing and communicating. This is what we call monitoring the narrative weather, and we are your resident meteorologists tracking everything across the country.
Each morning, we'll take you through the latest, where we cover stories of importance. Then we'll move to Hot Takes, where we look at viral content, and we'll wrap things up with On the Radar, a segment where we talk about real-time stories that we're tracking. We're super excited to be back in this format of our daily briefing. Welcome back, EVA and Miguel. I hope the time off didn't make y'all a little rusty, but I guess we'll see what happens.
I guess we will.
With that,
Although the individual interviews were really great.
Yeah,
they were awesome. They were awesome. With that, let's jump right into our first segment, the latest. Election officials nationwide found no evidence of voter fraud, according to an article in the New York Times. It's one of the most high-performing stories on the election, with over 48,000 mentions on Twitter and 50,000 shares on Facebook. Two other pieces of top-performing content in the news focuses on a postal worker out of Pennsylvania who admitted to fabricating his allegations on ballot tampering and whose false claims led to widespread disinformation in Pennsylvania on Election Day, which seems so far away now.
Renee, I can't believe it's literally only been 9 days since the actual election day.
What is time in the year of the Rona? I don't know.
The damage is done, though. Even if we debunk it later on, the fact is that false stories can become credible evidence when setting the narrative stage, y'all. Right-wing media, like the Gateway Pundit, the Federalist, and the Epoch Times, have used it as proof of widespread voter fraud. Also, do we need to say that widespread voter fraud is not an issue? Voter fraud is not an issue. Maybe in a different language. Just thinking out loud.
Seriously, though, I mean, not only has it been 9 days since the actual election day, but it's been, 5 days since the election was actually called? And we're still here listening to false claims of rigged elections and on voter fraud. Like we said in an episode of Signals in the Noise last week, the right's anti-democratic rigged election, quote-unquote, narrative reinforces false ideas about how big of an issue voter fraud is, because there is no solid proof of widespread voter fraud. No hay prueba de fraude en estas elecciones, okay?
While some Trump administration officials like Mike Pompeo and other members of the GOP become characters in the story of Trump's false claim of an election victory, some Trump staffers look beyond the next month for their next career move, y'all. Reddit users have taken to the politics subreddit to practically beg others to stop breathing life into key characters from the Trump administration, calling them Trump flunkies, especially when it comes to Kayleigh McEnany.
Okay, they sure are tired of her, aren't they?
They sure are.
Oh my God. Okay, very quick question. Do y'all think she'll end up on Dancing with the Stars like Sean Spicer? You know that these redemption arcs are pretty much a precedent at this point. So what do y'all think?
Oh, Spicy Spice, elected White House official, also co-anchor on Newsmax. Who knows?
I enjoy the nickname that you've given him. It's great.
I've talked to you about Spicy Spice. That just makes me think of a Spice Girl member. Like, stop. In all seriousness, though, other comments echo what we often uplift regarding misinformation and disinformation. If a story coming out of the Trump campaign is mis or disinformation, don't share it, even if you want to dunk on them. By interacting and sharing falsehoods the campaign or his administration happen to be spewing, it only rewards them with reactions. If you must respond, though, take a screenshot of the tweet and address the disinformation using the fact fallacy fact sandwich that we've mentioned in previous episodes.
Okay, here's the truth, y'all, and this is absolutely what our story should focus on. While Trump and his cronies are screaming about being disenfranchised, they're co-opting language long used by Black activists and other folks of color who fought hard for the constitutional right to vote. The insidiousness of Trump's claims obscure what is both the truth and the story that our side has tried to make mainstream for decades. That elections are unfair, they're biased, and that the vote of Black people and people of color is often suppressed.
Yep, and they've had a busy year suppressing the vote. Their attempts to tear down the USPS, to sabotage mail-in voting, allowing for intimidation at the polls, limiting real ballot boxes and voting hours, email threats, disinformation, and corruption. Y'all, I could go on. But with Trump's domination of this story, the underlying narrative is not one of expanded democracy and unity, but in fact, political warfare. Despite all of the challenges and obstacles, voters still decided that Biden would be their president-elect.
I want to go back to that point that you just made, EVA. Trump's underlying narrative isn't just about political warfare, it's racialized political warfare. Even though 79% of Congress is white and 72% of CEOs are white, many white people in society have a deep fear of losing political power and losing cultural dominance. And this fear ties into a resentment about the growing political power of Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. Trump's entire platform of America First or Make America Great Again is a dog whistle. It's meant to trigger this fear of resentment and give a pass to the fear response that urges people into maintaining power and privilege by any means necessary, even when it is on the backs of people of color. When we talk about voter suppression and protection, we're tapping into a narrative of racial justice. When they say it, they're tapping into a narrative of supremacy and fear.
Facts. Deep breath on that one. Yeah. Okay, so when we're searching for the keywords coup and rigged election, which are two of the phrases that continue to track across post-election conversations, we found that the dominant narrative is in fact coming from folks on the left in conversations about a potential coup. In the last 30 days, conversations on rigged elections are 900,000 mentions on Twitter, and coup is at over 4.5 million mentions. While there's an attempt by Trump loyalists and chaos agents looking to spread disinformation, the dominant conversations and messages highlight Trump's attempt at an authoritarian takeover and sharing resources on how to fight against a coup.
And because a bulk of the resource sharing is coming from accounts that do not seem to be tied to grassroots movement organizations, this definitely seems like an opportunity to ground folks in truth and not speculation, because we could fall into the right's game of fear-mongering, which aims to making us feel powerless, which we just know is not true because people power galvanized a record amount of voter turnout this year.
Yep.
We are aware of the valid concerns around white supremacists, domestic terrorism, and the fears of a coup. We're just not there yet.
Right.
Yeah. And we also can't forget that people have already decided this election. With the Trump presidency, we had an intractable enemy who actively incited street level violence against us. With the Biden-Harris administration, we have an organizing target and we have opportunities that didn't exist under Trump. Biden could advance 277 policies developed by the Biden-Sanders task force without needing to go through Congress that would greatly improve the lives of millions of Americans.
Yep. And where Trump was intractable, Biden has shown to be a true politician, taking positions that at the time were, quote, unquote, popular from certain members of the electorate. Think of the crime bill. Someone wanted it. Someone. Actually, a lot of people at the time. It's our jobs to make our ideas popular, to tell culturally compelling stories to varied audiences that tap into the deep narratives that we want to shape society. We have to make affordable housing, public education, and healthcare assumed to be a part of the common sense of society and not considered a wet blanket on the dreams that we will all day magically become millionaires. I know that some people believe that, but not true. So taking a page from the movement for Black Lives in the last year, we have to make liberation both irresistible and popular. Make it sexy. A Biden-Harris administration does not promise all of these things, but it does give us a little more room to bring them into being. And with that, let's jump into our next segment, Hot Takes.
All right, y'all. With the Supreme Court hearings on the Affordable Care Act underway, we have been monitoring stories and conversations on the court case, especially with the addition of Amy Coney Barrett. Now, while conversations within it are small, hashtag Save the ACA began trending on November 10th and has since dipped in volume. While its 32,000 mentions are nowhere near as large in conversations as the ACA at 1 million or on COVID at 18 million, We know that hashtag Save the ACA started earlier this week, and we expect it to experience peaks and valleys during the duration of the Supreme Court hearings, which will last until spring 2021.
Ooh, that's a long one, y'all. So just buckle up. We're just getting started. You know, I also can't believe that this is happening in the middle of a pandemic, especially when some parts of the country are experiencing either a second or even a third wave, and we continue to experience record-setting COVID cases all over. I guess we are number one at something after all. Yay.
No L's when it comes to COVID, okay? No
No.
L's. Especially with holiday season around the corner, like this is a lot that folks are having to think about, spending time with family. Okay, so it doesn't seem like you're the only one thinking about this in the ACA. EVA conversations on Facebook and Twitter under Save the ACA hashtag share the overarching sentiment of just how unbelievable it is to try and leave millions of people without health insurance in the middle of a pandemic. Yeah. Tweets by Nancy Pelosi, Michigan Senator Tammy Baldwin, and former presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg all share the same sentiment.
Yeah, it feels as if someone sent out a messaging memo or something. Who knows? But there may be some slight breathing room in this, and I do mean very, very slight when it comes to the Supreme Court's take on this.
Please tell me more. Are you saying that the Supreme Court has our backs on this? What's going on?
It depends on who you ask, okay?
Okay.
A summary of Tuesday's arguments by CNN reports that Chief Justice Roberts, who is part of the conservative Supreme Court majority, seemed a little miffed at the fact that the ACA was before the court again after two lower courts already ruled in favor of keeping the individual mandate.
Well, as miffed as a judge on the Supreme Court can get.
Yeah.
During the Justice Roberts reportedly responded to Texas Solicitor General Kyle Hawken that it was not the job of the Supreme Court to repeal the ACA.
Yeah, you know, I really wonder how many people are tuned into the live audio stream now that the Supreme Court is meeting remotely due to COVID. I definitely caught a little bit on my C-SPAN. Y'all know I like C-SPAN.
We know you like C-SPAN. I listened and I tried to pretend that it was one of my favorite podcasts. I don't know how well that worked, but they definitely need to add some music, maybe a sprinkle of Meg Thee Stallion when they need to use the bathroom, something.
You know, just a quick musical interlude. You know, the Hotties for Democracy could save us all. We don't know.
Or they could just bring in the Dancing Lobsters. I love the Amanda. Remember that?
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one.
Okay. Let's bring it back. Bring it back. All jokes aside, Justice Roberts is not alone. Justice Brett Kavanaugh, Trump's second appointee to the bench, also said during the arguments that he tends to agree with the ACA as long as the individual mandate is removed. And this kind of messaging shift from conservatives isn't only being seen in the Supreme Court. We're even seeing this happen within Fox News with instances of some of their hosts and reporters straight up saying that Trump's claim of voter fraud in Pennsylvania are not true. And they're doing this on air. Surprising, shocking.
Oh, we cannot forget about Trump calling them out personally during a phone interview on Fox and Friends either. Like, that was just great TV.
That was a lot.
He was a little tight.
Yeah, I think this is mostly because Rupert Murdoch and the folks at Fox are worried about ratings, though, since Trump didn't win his re-election. Because I'm pretty sure that if he did win, they would still be singing the same tunes they've been singing over the last 4 years. Well, beyond the last 4. They've been problematic for a long time.
Forever.
Very true. While some Republicans are for sure doubling down and following suit with Trump's messaging, looking at Rudy, Mitch, and Mike, others seem to be making a shift and starting to distance themselves from the Trump administration. As the battle over the election results continue, we could expect other Republicans to continue this type of political distancing in order to prepare themselves for a post-Trump landscape.
Agreed. I mean, some users on Twitter are even praising Justice Roberts' comments on the ACA and going as far as comparing him to ex-Justice Kennedy, who during his tenure gained a reputation of being a moderate conservative.
We really have to slow our rolls here. Slow down, okay? I don't know how I feel about calling a Supreme Court justice who's been on an anti-voting rights crusade with his attacks against the Voting Rights Act as a moderate. Like, I'm not feeling that.
True.
Yeah, you know, I don't know about that one either, Renee, but it's messaging like this that tends to move quickly and swiftly through a lot of audiences. Yes. We can frame conversations on the ACA as good, common sense policy that protects those with pre-existing health conditions and avoid falling into the pitfalls of criticizing individual members of the Supreme Court, you know? We can also uplift the widely held belief that healthcare should be accessible, especially during a pandemic that's affected millions of people across the country and the world, and it's held to and it has led to the loss of over 240,000 lives with 10 million new cases just recently.
Yeah.
Healthcare definitely should be accessible to all. Say it again, EVA.
One more time. Healthcare is accessible to all. There we go.
It should be.
Should be. Yes.
Also, conversations in popular Facebook posts by the USA Today and the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel went as far as saying, quote, "The Supreme Court is going to surprise many Americans. Wait and see," end quote. And another comment said, "Wait, what? I thought the horrible, mean, conservative Supreme Court would take away healthcare for 8 million people," end quote. Conversations in these Facebook posts demonstrate beliefs about the Supreme Court and our faith in it as an institution, whose credibility as a nonpartisan governing body has been attacked by this administration. By way of appointees or policies, Trump has inoculated freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and trust in the courts by creating distrust in the systems of government. The right wing's trap is to force people to make the leap from democracy to trusting authoritarian figures like Trump. The role of the Supreme Court is to ensure democracy works in the United States. And while it is imperfect, we must reinforce the message that democracy works and that government is not the problem, but bad actors are.
Okay, let's take a collective breath. That was a lot to take in. And we're going to transition into our last segment on the radar.
All right, so what's coming up on the radar? We're definitely monitoring the continued ideological debates on defunding the police. Yes, they're back. And the hashtag Black Lives Matter by the right, and the use of the hashtag Black Lives Matter by the right, who seem to be nitpicking the letter penned by Patrisse Cullors to the office of the president-elect from a story circulated by right-wing news outlet The Blaze and libertarian influencer Larry Elder. Wait, libertarians have influencers?
You know, I mean, the Ron and Rand Pauls of the world are not in office anymore, so I guess Larry Elder is the next best thing. I don't know. I haven't heard of him before, but apparently he has like 900,000 followers on Twitter. Y'all, I'm sorry to this man.
I am not sorry to this man. He apparently calls himself Uncle Tom, so no, it's absolutely not fine. We're continuing to monitor stories and conversations about the difference in how rural communities vote versus urban communities, especially as the popular neoliberal subreddit discusses how Biden won counties producing 70% of the country's GDP.
Wait, hold on. Isn't Larry Elder the same man who made a doc about Black conservatives and called the documentary Uncle Tom?
EVA, the more you talk about this man, the less I actually want to know about him. Please.
The trailer was interesting, y'all. I mean, if you haven't, I'm not saying watch the documentary, but at least watch the trailer. Okay. You might learn something. I don't know.
I'm starting to think you're on payroll, girl. I don't know.
I'm not gonna watch it. I was just trying to help him out. I don't know.
Okay, lovely. Well, we'll have updates on these topics and more during tomorrow's episode of Signals in the Noise. Don't forget, it's our last episode of the season. I'm so sorry to see y'all go. We've enjoyed this. We've had so much fun. We hope that you'll join us tomorrow. Anything from y'all before we bounce?
I just can't believe it's been a whole season already.
Yeah, it's been great. I'm excited to do this again. So
make sure everybody tunes in tomorrow.
Yes, we'll see you all tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Yeah.